Start streaming. There we go. Okay. I think. Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now
I see it now.
I can hear
There
it.
we go.
Yes.
Okay. I
How's
think.
it sound?
Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was sorry. I was listening to it to check the levels. Because for some reason, you all are way louder than I am. I don't know exactly what it is. It's something that, like, Audition picks up my levels at a higher volume than OBS does, and I cannot figure out how to get all that sorted. So unfortunately, my solution is to turn everyone else down when we're streaming, which isn't ideal. But you know, it is what it is. Are we ready to get rolling?
Indeed.
Okay, here we go. Oh, let me get a timestamp real quick for my recording. Okay, here we go. Listen up, library patrons, and welcome back to Obroa-Skai Walkers. I am one of your librarians, Ben, and I am joined by my fellow librarian, Cole.
That's me.
Yes, we are coming at you again on a Wednesday night. One of these days, we're going to nail down this new schedule, and who knows? Maybe it's Wednesday nights. I don't know. We'll see. But how you doing, Cole? So we can do this weird little fake bit of pleasantries at the beginning of the episode, even though we have been talking already.
Yeah, doing pretty good. Pretty
Doing
good, you know.
Doing good. Cool. Glad to hear it. I have a bit of a Star Trek anecdote. Not very interesting, but I'm going to talk about it anyway before we
I love a Trek anecdote.
yeah. Well, after our discussion of Tuvix last week, talking about Voyager, talking about Star Trek, I'm assuming the only place you can stream Star Trek now is Paramount Plus, right?
Probably, but it's one of those things I think that still kind of bounces around some.
Okay.
But I think it is all on Paramount Plus now, but
Okay.
it might still be available other places too, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay, because I know at one point I watched TNG on Netflix.
Yeah, for a long time, all of it was on Netflix.
Okay. Well, one way or the other, I was like, maybe I'll give it another shot. Because it's not that I've ever, like TNG especially, I've never disliked it. It's just, I just don't watch a ton of TV, and, Star Wars is what takes up
And it's a
lot of
huge show commitment.
Exactly,
time-wise.
exactly. So I was like, I think I'm going to download it. And I have pretty fast internet, by and large.
Mm-hmm.
I downloaded the first season of Voyager as well. I was not able to find... Is Voyager on Blu-ray?
No, it's not.
Okay, I was not able to find a...
TNG is the original series, and TNG have had Blu-ray remasters done. DS9 and Voyager have not. And Enterprise going forward was the first one that was aired in HD.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, Voyager and DS9 are in this weird, awkward place where they require a very, very thorough remastering that would be very expensive to do, and has not happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's kind of shocks me. I guess not. If Voyager especially is one that's a little less loved, I can see why they might not have put the effort into doing it. But
yeah, the thing is, the reason behind all of it is that they did TNG. Like TNG, and the thing is, the process for doing it, the way that they've wanted to do it, is like they had to like go back to the original film and rescan all of it, and then redo the visual effects for everything. Because whenever all the shows were made, the visual effects were done on tape.
Oh, so they don't... There's
not
no
on film.
There's no film master that has the effects baked in.
Exactly. So for TNG, what they literally did, they went and rescanned all of it and redid the effects for everything. And it was extremely expensive, and it wasn't very profitable.
Okay. So they're very much like I don't think we want to do that again. I mean,
Yeah.
my knowing very little, and maybe you know more, I would just kind of assume that maybe Voyager's in a similar boat where it's like
Yeah, DS9 and Voyager are in the exact same boat.
where
So,
they produce the same way, where there's no master
yeah,
with the effects.
they're produced exactly the same way, and there were less popular shows. That like TNG's the most popular,
Yeah,
and it make money. So they're like, there's no way, unfortunately.
yeah. I mean, do you know of
There
any?
are a bunch of fan
I was gonna say,
like upscaling attempts that have been done. I've heard some good things about them too, but
Mhm.
it's AI upscaling stuff, and
yeah. So
it's a very
that's
degrees of success.
yep. And
Though
honestly,
there are a few official clips. Well, I say official. A few years back, they did a DS9 documentary, like a pretty official one with like a lot of the original creators and
sure,
stuff.
sure.
And they did a few scenes. They did a full remasters of,
That's
which are really
annoying.
cool. Which is really cool. Like it's like kind of like a proof of concept. Like, hey, this is what it could look like, which is almost more frustrating.
I was
But
gonna say it's like the 4K McClunky cut, the 4K versions
Mhm.
on Disney Plus, where it's like, here's your Star Wars in 4K. This is what you always wanted, and the fanboys are like, no, this actually you can keep it. This isn't what I wanted.
This is not what I wanted.
um,
Yeah. So, but there are a couple of really good scenes. Like they did one of like the huge space battles from DS9,
okay,
like a big sequence. It's like one of the things that would take incredible to see nowadays. And DS9, like it has some of the biggest space battles I've ever seen in like anything.
really?
Yeah, it like there's not like a ton of them, but when they hit, they're insane. Like
Which is
hundreds of ships.
funny to me because Star Trek is not Star Wars like war, right? It's inherently
Mhm.
violent on some level.
Yeah,
I feel like Star Trek is not necessarily inherently violent. So
it's true.
to hear that it has some of the biggest space battles that you've seen, there's some cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
there.
Heck, even if you wanted to right now, pull up just like search DS9 Sacrifice of Angels, and you'll find the clip pretty much immediately. Huge space battles from
hang
DS9,
on.
and you'll see a little like some immediate little snippets to kind of get a taste of what they were doing occasionally, and like how insane it was what they were pulling off back in like 1997 or whenever it was
On network TV.
on network TV. It's pretty
yeah.
insane.
Like I'm not looking at the here. Well, just for those who are on the stream, I guess I can. Oh no, I can't. Sorry, it's kind of a pain because of the way I've set my Discord up, so I can't.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is like we're talking like, in some cases, more ships on screen than we're closer to like Battle of Exegol than
Yeah.
Battle of Endor.
Mhm. It really is like so much stuff going on, and it's like it's not like huge 20-minute long sequences or anything. It's isolated sequences with a lot of it being inside the ships,
Sure.
where they can film it, but it's still really insane what they pull off,
Right.
and still looks really good even though it's all in SD.
SD is one of those things that you don't really notice until you've been watching a ton of HD content. It's
Mhm.
like if I get used to watching something in SD or DVD quality, I'm like, oh, this is fine. This isn't so bad. And
Mhm.
then you go, watch something that is in like 1080p or even 720, and you're just like, oh my god,
Mhm.
what have I been doing?
Yep.
But I do want to say Nathan has joined us. Hello, Nathan. Welcome to the
Oh,
stream.
welcome.
Um,
Yeah, so you downloaded Voyager and TNG though?
yeah,
is what you said?
Voyager. I've got
seasons?
fast internet. Voyager, no issues. Real
Mhm.
fast. Season 1, DVD quality.
And season 1 of Voyager is also shorter, I think.
Okay. Well, TNG, season 1's like what, 26 episodes or something?
Yeah, something like that.
I got the normal Blu-ray rip 1080p, so I didn't
Mhm.
go too crazy. The torrent I found was still 115 gigabytes, and I spent multiple days. I spent multiple days downloading the Next Generation, and was like, well, because the thing, not to get too nerdy, but it's kind of why part of the reason we're here, I guess. I used to run my Plex server off my Raspberry Pi a lot, so I would have to get H.264. I would have to use that codec because the Raspberry Pi couldn't play 265 natively. and 265 is a higher efficiency codec and has much smaller file sizes for like basically the same quality.
Mhm.
I think I must have grabbed a 264 instead of a 265, and I'm like, I'm running it off a big like Linux server now. I should with an actual like graphics card that I can use for like transcoding. So I should
You probably don't need the. You could probably do the more efficient.
Probably just get the 265 and say I have a 6 terabyte hard drive in there, but I don't want to waste it on
Yeah, it's a pretty significant chunk. I mean, it is like you said. It's it's 26 45-minute episodes in HD. I mean, that's a lot of video file.
Right, it is. It's
no getting around that.
The thing is, though, I've watched the first season of the first episode of TNG multiple times, so I think
and it's not a great one, unfortunately.
No, I think I'm probably just gonna skip to where I'm gonna skip until I stop remembering what I've seen, because
that's completely fair.
I've made a couple. I've made a couple of efforts at it, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to.
If you wanted like a semi-curated list, I could totally get that for you.
Well, and I'm torn because I definitely don't want to skip episodes. I don't.
Yeah, no, but I get that too, and honestly, that's the thing I would recommend doing. But I also understand that, especially early TNG, it's got some rough spots. And the thing is, like I said, the first episode, Encounter at Farpoint, it's iconic in its own ways. It's got a lot of
course.
It introduces all the characters and introduces Q, does lots of great stuff. But it's a pretty rough beginning, all things considered. But it does really pay off in the finale of the TNG, whenever they like full circle it in a great way.
Okay.
So it is satisfying having watched it and seeing the ending. You're like, completion.
Well,
there's a satisfaction there.
Who knows? Maybe you've convinced me. I love a good completion, so maybe I'll just power through it.
TNG has one of the best finales of like TV. It's considered one of the better TV finales. It's great.
Like up there in the pantheon of all-time great TV finales.
Yeah.
Well,
and DS9's is really good too, I think, but TNG's is probably like a better one on the whole, even if DS9 is. TNG's weird because it's the finale, but then there's also 4 movies.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It loses a little bit because you're like, well, this isn't really the end.
Right. So I don't know. Anyway, that was I do intend to embark on that journey at some point. There's a couple of a few anime series I'm trying to finish or trying to start / finish. Don't worry, not gonna linger on those. I am gonna finish the 8th MS team, Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam, the 8th MS team. I've tried to watch it a million times. I like it. I just kind of fall off of anime, but I'm gonna finish it. It's 12 episodes. I can do it.
That's nothing.
Nothing. Exactly. And they're half-hour, 20-minute episodes too. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
But then also, The Witch from Mercury is another one I've heard.
That's the good things.
That's the newest one. I've heard a lot of good things about it. And I'm like, I like Gundam. I can do this. It's also season 1, relatively short, 12 episodes, I think. But that is all when I'm not watching Bad Batch. Are you caught up? Have you watched today's?
Oh, I am ashamed to say I'm actually 2 episodes back now.
2 episodes. All right.
I haven't even watched last week's because this last week has been really hectic. I've been working on my car a lot, unfortunately. Which, I mean, it hasn't been like a major problem. It's just been time consuming.
Right.
Something between work and that, I just have not had the time.
No judgment here.
I plan to do that tomorrow.
No judgment here.
Watched.
Obviously,
I'm still just on episode 3.
Right. I won't say that you've missed anything major. I don't want to be too down on it.
That's what I've heard. I've heard these are more like, standalone.
Yeah, today's episode, episode 5, did not impress me.
I saw you didn't like it that much.
I was not definitely not like a bad episode of TV, right? But just like I think it's one of the weaker episodes of the series overall.
Gotcha.
It just kind of feels like there was my kind of summarized non-spoilery review is that there was a lot of potential in this episode, and it's possible if this turns into an arc, I will look back on it more favorably. But if this is kind of a one-off thing, then this episode is really going to feel like an also ran, like, this one was also in season 2. Why? I don't know. But so not bad. It was one of those ones I honestly kind of tuned out a little because I'm like, not a lot going on in this one. Last week's episode is similar, but I just think the same kind of thing done better.
Gotcha.
Or it's like the adventure, the kind of adventure of the week kind of thing. But anyway, that's my I know I know the season's gonna be good. And there are 16 episodes? I feel like we talk about this like all the time.
Yes, 16. Yeah.
Yeah, Nathan saying, "Why did the thing work that way?" I don't know, Nathan. Normally that's that's kind of the thing that doesn't bug me too much in Star Wars. But it's just when the house around it is built kind of in a ramshackle way, or is not very impressive, like smaller flaws start to come through a little bit more. But
It's true. It's true.
But it is what it is. I'm sure next week we've had a couple that have been a little more on the downside, at least in terms of like moving the plot forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if next week we got something that was more meaty.
I know that there's the way the season was broken up, like there was 3 2-parters that we were getting.
This might be a 2-parter then. This could be a 2-parter.
Well, like I think we were getting it was like double episodes we were getting on the same day.
Oh, then
it was a premiere 2-parter, and then like a mid-season 2-parter, then a finale 2-parter, I think.
Yeah.
I was gonna look up to see if I could find the schedule, because I know somebody had that.
Yeah, if this is not a 2-parter, then but we'll see.
Not to say that threads can't carry over beyond that, but I know that we're probably coming up on the middle of the season. I feel like we have to be
1, 2. Next week will be 6. Yeah. Assuming that if it's episode 7 and 8 that are a 2-parter, then yeah, we're just 2 weeks away.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that. Well, it's fresh in the brain.
Sure.
My phone will load.
It's giving me a little more time to double down on my article from the archives this week. Because I have one.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think this could be good. It's from a book we will eventually talk about, but have not talked about a ton. So I'm more than happy to jump into that a little bit. Because I know we both have experiences with it.
Mm-hmm. If you want to go ahead and go into it, I'll see if I can dig this up.
Cool. Let's go ahead and pick this one then. I lost it. Sorry, there it is. Okay. This week's article from the archives is entitled Black Level. Black Level was the lowest of the 3 passenger levels on the errant venture, located just above the mines. It was mostly holds, workshops, and stripped passenger cabins. It was ideal for those who wanted safe passage aboard the errant venture, but couldn't afford better accommodations. All sales are forbidden on those level by Tarek himself, with the exception of food and shadow shops that deal with the business Booster wasn't willing to do in open.
Whoops.
This article could use some work. The level was patrolled by ships security forces, who had a room block in the center of the Black Level that was much nicer than the rest of it. Oh.
I think I know where this is all from. This is from Legacy of the Force.
No.
Right? Is it not?
Well, listen. Cole, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to call anybody out. The author of this article, I believe... Oh, no, never mind. Weird formatting. Sorry. I thought the author of this article signed the article. I'm like, how has nobody's bot caught this or anything? Thankfully, that is not what happened. This is listed only as appearing one time in iJedi. And it is sourced from Scum and Villainy, which I believe is... I'm going to try to guess. This is Wizards of the Coast. Yes, Wizards of the Coast.
What was the title of the article again?
Black Level. Proper noun, capital B, capital L. Not that it matters, I guess.
Yeah.
But Block 1138 Sable was the name of the security forces block on Black Level. Air Adventure, of course, the flagship of Booster Tarek. It's a big old Star Destroyer, painted red. The amount of money he must have spent on red paint is unfathomable to me.
It's hilarious.
Mogo is asking a question here in chat that, yes, I am going to bring up because, of course, I am. Listen. I think we're in agreement, though. So I think it'll be okay.
I know.
I think it'll be okay. But yeah, iJedi, for those who don't know, is I don't want to call it a retcon because I feel like retcon implies that there was like an intent to change something, and maybe there were a few.
Mhm.
Kevin J. Anderson wrote the Jedi Academy trilogy at some point in the mid '90s. Focus on Luke and Kip Duron. That's his first appearance, and Admiral Dala. A lot of like well-known characters and legends are established there, and characters and plot points. I, Jedi is a retelling of that whole trilogy in a single book from the perspective of Corran Horn, who, as we might
Well,
know,
I mean, it's retelling the Jedi Academy location
you're right.
specific story.
You're right. Basically, what the book does is inserts Corran Horn into the scenes that take place in the Jedi Academy trilogy at Luke's Jedi Academy. Which is
There's
funny.
plenty of other side plots and stuff that,
Sure.
aren't relevant to that, but you do
Right.
get the general gist of it, especially if you're just interested in the Jedi stuff.
I do think it's funny though that Corran Horn. Whether or not this is correct, I'm leaving up to the listener. Corran Horn is frequently referred to as a self-insert character for Mike Stackpole because Corran Horn definitely is one of those characters who very infrequently does something wrong and actually has it end up going poorly for him. He's this very cool guy. He's a womanizer, and I like Corran Horn. He's kind of insufferable. I do think it's funny that if we look at Corran Horn as a self-insert character, this is Mike Stackpole saying, I'm going to insert my self-insert character into somebody else's story. So there's a lot to unpack there. But all joking aside, I actually really enjoy iJedi. I think it's a really solid book. And gives you a lot of the good stuff from the Jedi Academy trilogy without some of the more KJA stuff. To leave it to put it softly.
Yeah, I was thinking that like this black level thing, it might be literally just in iJedi if that's the case. But I just remember some stuff happening on Air Adventure during Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi that felt like it could have been this, but it very well might not be. It's one of those
Okay.
things that a really obscure reference that might not have got pulled in at any point. But it feel like it could have been. So
And I have no context.
Yeah. I mean, saying that some things happen on the Air Adventure shouldn't be that big of a surprise.
No, I suppose it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, because Air Adventure definitely appears in Exile and Fury.
Oh, okay. Well, while we're on the subject of, Star Wars books that we're not reading for this podcast, before I take a little bit of a diversion into Mogo's question here, I did finish Most Wanted since we recorded last. That book was very good.
Yeah.
That book was very good, and
Super solid.
It's like my inner anxiety was like, oh my god, these High Republic things haven't been grabbing me as much. Is it a whole Star Wars thing, or is it just the books? And I read Most Wanted. It's like, oh, it's just the books.
It's just
it's just the High Republic is kind of moving a little slowly right now for me. I really, really badly wanted to pick up. Which one is it? Tempest. I wanted to pick up Tempest, but I'm like, no, I'm reading Order 66. I'm gonna read a non-Star Wars book. So I picked. Let me make sure I get the title right because I always confuse it with another book. So I'm gonna make sure. Yes. Okay. The book I'm reading is a non-Star Wars book. It is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, which is the first in his one of his. I don't know. I bought it a long time ago, so probably things have changed. His fantasy series. And Ken Liu wrote from a certain point of view. I don't remember which story. Oh, he wrote the Sith of Data Work. But he wrote, which I like the Sith. I like the Sith of Data Work. So that is A-okay by me. He also wrote the Legends of Luke Skywalker.
Okay, I was about to say I thought he wrote something else too.
Yes.
That was the
Legends of Luke Skywalker. Really, I'd say that book is about 3/5 super solid, 4/5 pretty good, and the lugubrious mode. Man, I hate that story. It's just funny. Like, it's just some of these authors. It's funny. I love so many of the things they do, and then they hit me with one thing that's like, man, I cannot abide by this. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, you just kind of tanked your hit rate right there. Yeah.
But he is a good author. He really is. And I've been enjoying The Grace of Kings. It's one of those things it's hard to get into a new fantasy property or something you're not familiar with. And it's a lot easier to go back to, say, Wheel of Time, where it's like, I know what's going on there. But I find that the more I push through and the more I'm like, no, I'm making an effort to get into this, it's good. It's good. Character work is already pretty solid. It's really evocative. It's really descriptive. So I'm enjoying that a lot. So Star Wars is taking a back seat, but I think Tempest will probably be next.
Cool.
But I do kind of want 2023 to be the year that I catch up with canon too. Like there's some stuff I haven't read. Black Spire. I haven't read A Crash of Fate. I haven't read Tarkin actually. There's just some like pretty significant chunks in my backlog of things I haven't read or experienced in another way. But I don't know. Some of the novelizations as well.
It does seem like this year's, like, at least currently, looks like it's kind of light on new books.
Right.
Though that might just be because Celebration hasn't happened yet, and they're just holding all the stuff for Celebration. But
I think that's likely. I keep forgetting because I'm not going to Celebration, and it's like never been a consideration. I was never in my mind going to Celebration. I'm just like, oh.
And last year's Celebration it's been less than a year because when they pushed the dates, so it's like it's coming right up.
Yes. Mogo says, Ben, I won't read a Star Wars book this time, but it's still only 2 degrees away from a Star Wars book. That's true. That's the reason I watched. Honestly, that's the reason I watched Knives Out when I did, and which is the reason I watched Glass Onion when I did, because obviously those films are great on their own right. But Rian Johnson, I don't know. Hey, at least I'm not only sticking with
something
Star Wars.
Familiar.
It could be worse. It could be worse. I could be literally only consuming Star Wars, right?
Yeah, I mean, the last book I read was a non-Star Wars Timothy Zahn book, so that's just me.
One day, I'm gonna pick those up one of these days. Yeah, Celebration.
This one's like barely sci-fi.
Nathan says weeping about Celebration. It's hard because it's like I've been to 3 of them now, I guess. And it's so nice. You hang out with all your friends. You see all these, you meet all these new people, and it's so great. And then they're like, "This one's in London. This one's in England. It's across the pond. You can't really make this one happen." Which is a bummer, but it's nice to have a little bit of a break, I guess. I say as though we didn't have multiple celebrations postponed by a global pandemic.
Well,
Anyway, Mogo is leaving, unfortunately, because I'm assuming he's going to work. I do want to get to his question, though. There was some talk in the Skyhoppers Discord earlier, and some of it tongue-in-cheek, but I think a lot of it was legitimate, too, about the potential of Mara Jade appearing in canon. And I'm not going to misrepresent anybody's ideas, so apologies if I'm not quoting your idea directly and you we're part of this conversation. But there were a lot of things I read that were like, okay, yeah, I could get behind that, kind of. Like, I like this part of this thing. But at the end of the day, I kept kind of feeling like a lot of these things I feel like would reduce Mara in canon to being Mara in name only. At which point you kind of get to well, why is this Mara Jade? Why couldn't this just be somebody else? And that kept going back to, well, her fate is so kind of inexorably tied to Luke's. But I didn't want to say that because I'm like, well, she's a great character in her own right. She has not only made a good character by Luke. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, what do you think?
She's a character that was created as a foil for Luke.
Right.
Originally. I mean, there's kind of no getting around that as like, the original inception of the character.
Right.
So, yeah, it's so hard. I just can't imagine a way them doing it that would make me happy. Honestly, is the problem.
No, because one of the general ideas was that it is still Mara that is that is still serving Palpatine basically as the Emperor's hand, but it's like during the lead up to the rise of Skywalker, like during the sequel trilogy era,
Mm-hmm.
so that she's closer to Rey's age rather than Luke's. So you don't end up with the inevitable question of, well, oh my god, in Legend she was Luke Skywalker's wife. You know, like there's so much baggage with that character, and you can't just willy-nilly throw her into canon. But if you put her anywhere else in if you put her at about the same age and like line her like you know, her the date she was alive up with Legends, you're going to end up with the question of like, well, does she end up with Luke? Like, how does that all shake out? Well, I would wager to bet she didn't end up with Luke at any point. At this point, like with what we know of the way Luke's life has gone. And if she did, there's a huge if she was at any point, there's obviously some sort of huge departure between their, you know, canon and Legend storylines. So I'm kind of with you. I'm left thinking like, yeah, it would be cool if Mara was here. Thrawn, they kind of plopped into a different point in the timeline, which still makes sense with his Legends timeline, and he's removed from the original trilogy. Thrawn, they kind of wiggled into being okay. Mara, yeah. I just don't really see a way that you bring Mara in, have it be Mara, while also feeling satisfactory. I'm with you, where it's just like, I think she's just going to be Legends forever.
Yeah, and maybe that's for the best.
Maybe it is, and I think that's fine. But of course, you know, listeners, you are welcome to disagree. Feel free to shoot us an email at obroa-skywalkers@gmail.com if you have any particularly strong feelings about it. It's a bummer. I just don't think there's any. I mean, can you think of any other characters that just can't exist in canon? Because I mean, obviously any character can, right? Like they could just take
Galen Merrick, Starkiller, feels like one that, you know, because we have so much Vader content.
We do. It's getting real crowded.
It's one of those ones that if they also included him in there somehow, I'm like, it starts stretching credibility in so many ways.
Yeah, I have questions.
So I've definitely seen, I don't know if it was actual concept art, if it was just like fan concept art of him being like an Inquisitor, basically.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Which is a fun idea in and of itself, but again,
and
I just don't know.
No, that's kind of what it ends up at. It ends up as a fun idea. I don't see how it has any legs. But really, I don't think of many characters that are so bogged down with baggage outside of those two that really just cannot, in any sort of satisfactory way, make the jump. Because even someone like Kyle Katarn, I feel like he would undoubtedly be doing different things. He would not have stolen the Death Star plans. He wouldn't have necessarily become a Jedi Knight and then stopped being a Jedi, all that stuff. But Rebel mercenary showing up in something akin to Star Wars Rebels at some point, sure. Makes sense. Jan Ors could be there too.
And then training at Luke's Academy later on, and you know, however that shakes out, you know, who knows?
Getting killed by whoever was that pulled the trigger on Luke's Academy. You say it was Snoke or Palpatine, but that was in a comic, so you know.
Or he trained for a while and then left, and so he wasn't there when it happened.
He wasn't there. Like Grogu will inevitably be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, he spent like 3 days there.
I was gonna say, assuming he's even there. It's so funny that like I'm all about Tales of the Jedi, and they bring Ossus into canon, and that's where Luke's Jedi Academy is. I'm like, one part of me is like, oh, that's so sick, and the other part of me is like, The Last Jedi really made it look like Lothal, and I feel like that would have been a really good way to go for a lot of reasons. You know? I don't know. I don't want to seem ungrateful, but Lothal, I think, in the canon timeline, would have been a good option.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. I'm sure we will get let's see. What is the show Luke Skywalker is least likely to pop up in next? Because I imagine that's where
Least likely? Ooh.
The
I
Acolyte.
mean, the Acolyte is gonna be the least likely, right?
I was gonna say because
We'll
that's
have a Vector-esque cameo.
that's probably where we'll see him next. Although,
Prophecy of the Chosen One.
oh god, can you imagine? Can you imagine? I would be like, okay, I get it. You've got the Luke deepfake. You've got Hayden Christensen, but rein it in, please. When does it end? But of course, I don't,
Skywalkers everywhere.
I don't think that's going to happen. I heard a rumor from on Star Wars Newsnet. Did not read the article. Apologies. That Skeleton Crew has wrapped filming.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah. Me and Cole corroborate it. It must be true. I'm starting to kind of that's post Return of the Jedi, right?
It's supposed to be like in the Mando time frame, as far as we know.
Okay. Well,
like I'm half expecting either in Mando season 3 or in Ahsoka there to be a soft pilot, whatever you call it, you know,
right.
backdoor pilot, basically introducing maybe Jude Law's character, if not, you know, the kids and such.
I don't know though, because well, it's hard to say. I'm inclined to believe this one might truly be in its own independent show. It is in the Mando time frame. You're right. So God only knows. They've shown a propensity to be rather loose with their cameos, but all those other shows were kind of like Ahsoka, Mando, Book of Boba Fett. Those were all announced around the same time. So to me, they're all part of that same initiative. Skeleton Crew very easily could have just come later. But I wouldn't be shocked if this one was kind of its own thing. And it just happens to take place at this point in the timeline. But,
Could be.
Yeah. I don't really know.
I'm looking at it probably as more of a, you know, interconnected piece of the little storyline they're doing. Whether it's, you know, a big piece, a small piece, or you know, it might be like its own independent story, but then like ends up mattering in the end of it or something, you know.
Right.
We know very, very little about the story beyond, you know, Jude Law being some kind of captain of a ship and a bunch of kids getting stuck with him. That's kind of what we know.
Yeah, I will say though, like many things, the longer it sits with me and the longer the more time I have to just kind of, the more I hear about it, the more excited I get. Because I'm just like, hey, this is a new Star Wars show. I shouldn't count it out just because it's, you know, I don't know. I don't want to say just because they're, you know, starring kids, because like Stranger Things was a great show.
Everyone counted Andor out, and look what happened.
I don't know. Some of these people, I still am seeing some like, I don't know, just around Mastodon. It's really easy to like follow hashtags on Mastodon. So Mastodon by and large is more polite than Twitter, right? It's better. You still just get some absolutely whack takes from people though about Star Wars. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's why I don't check it very often, because I'm like, this is why I left Twitter. I don't want to hear you people say these things. I don't know, but just it is what it is. I just have learned more and more as I've gotten older that I care less and less about other people's opinions of Star Wars. It's funny, you like discover the community at large, and you're like, wow, all these people, these differing takes, and I'm just like, shut up. I don't care. I don't care what you think. You're not my friend. I don't know you. I literally could not care less what you think. Good or bad. That of course includes you listeners. Please tell me what you think. In any channel that you deem appropriate. But I digress. Have you been up to anything? Not Bad Batch, obviously. I'm assuming you've just been too busy to.
Yeah, not really much of anything.
Get into
honestly.
much.
Like I said, I was reading a non-Star Wars Timothy Zahn book that I've read before, so you know it's not even like new. It's just it was something I was feeling like reading, so it was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, beyond that, not really much of anything besides Order 66.
Cool.
So you know,
Order 66 is getting good. I mean, it was already good, right? Not to get too far into it, obviously, but like, Fi had some big moments this week, and just some really like, I don't know. I'm just still shocked by how poignant might be the wrong word, but how impactful some of this writing is. Some of these moments with these characters. I don't know. We'll get into that a little more, obviously, as we go. But it's just like, this is still a Star Wars book, right? Like, this is a pulpy sci-fi Star Wars book, right? Like, I'm feeling an awful lot.
Yeah. It's amazing how you can get those two things together sometimes, right?
No, I know. Obviously, you know, Star Wars is got room for feelings in it, but like, Mandalorian armor doesn't make me feel the same way that Order 66 does. There's definitely just different degrees of stuff.
Totally.
Well, we started a little late, so I don't want to linger off the book for too much longer. Much to the disappointment of anyone who likes the fact that our episodes are 2 hours long. I have, well, no updates, I guess, but a status report rather. I mentioned on an episode, I can't remember if it was during, you know, our little holiday interlude or if it was the one before. I mentioned that in the Shadows of the Empire abridged audiobook, there was some weird synthesized MIDI music where what I would expect a fully orchestrated, you know, orchestral track to be regarding parts of Shizor's theme in that. I have reached out to multiple different email addresses and have yet to hear back from anybody. I reached out to just like the Penguin Random House, who are the owners now of Bantam Doubleday Dell Audio, or Bantam Doubleday Dell, and by extension, I would imagine, audio publishing. I've reached out to the main Penguin Random House, like public-facing email address I could find, and I reached out to the audio-focused email address. I have not heard anything back. I don't know if they're seeing my subject line about like, help with some info about a Star Wars audiobook from the 90s and just saying, no, I'm not messing with that. But I'm still putting out that call for information. If you know anything about these audio productions, I would love for you to get in contact with me, because it keeps me up at night. Truly, it does. Not understanding why. And I feel like this could, at least, you know, at this point in my life, this could be my greatest contribution to Star Wars fandom, is finding out, you know, it's turned into something bigger than it is, because I want like this to be my legacy. It's like, I found out, I tracked this info down and got it out there, why this track was used when presumably there was a fully fleshed out orchestral version on the way. But I even went as far as to look at eBay. I know you looked at your own, some of the ones that you own, some of the books on tape, and there were no credits or anything. And I went as far as to look on eBay at shots of the Shadows of the Empire one, to no avail. I do wonder though if I could get in touch with like Anthony Heald, who wrote it. Does he have like a website or something? He's probably retired or something, you know. Just hard. It's just sometimes other, you know, like character actors will have like a website or whatever that you can get in touch with them through, but it doesn't look like it. Bums me out. Legitimately keeps me up. I think about like, okay, who else could I get in contact with? What other avenues are there? And I just don't have the connections. I just don't know. You know, I feel like a lot of times people who go after this sort of thing have some sort of connection, some place to start, but I don't know who to reach out to. So if you have any ideas, Obroa-Skywalkers@gmail.com, please, because otherwise I will just be over here fretting, you know, dying a little inside with each passing day.
Well, I'm sure answers will come eventually, or you know, just fade into the background forever.
Someone knows. Someone.
The answer
knows.
is out there. Question is like getting the question to them.
You know what? The hard thing is, I feel like I think I've probably talked about it before. There is a YouTuber / streamer. I don't know how active he is right now. Saint Million. I don't agree with all of his Star Wars opinions, but rarely do I agree with everybody's Star Wars opinions. He at Games Done Quick a few years ago, he's the one that ran the Phantom Menace for the PlayStation. It is legitimately one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It is up there in my top 5 favorite speedruns. I've watched that video so many times. I love it. He was able to he did like a kind of a retrospective, a history on Shadows of the Empire, and was able to get in touch with the lead developer or the game designer, someone who worked on that game. And it makes me wonder if he's available, does he know anything? Granted, these departments are not linked, right? Like these are not the same thing, but I mean, Nathan is in chat saying if I reached out to David Collins, he might know something. So that's another very, very reasonable course of action.
It's true.
Once Cole starts talking more, I might see what I can do there. But anyway, I don't know. It's bugging me. The info is out there. I need to find it, man. I need to find it.
Find the right person to ask, or
I know.
It's like, or even like just the right person. It's like, oh, I know the guy that would know this. It's all about finding the lead.
Exactly, because there is a public face. I believe there is a public facing person that I could send a tweet to or send an email to, who would see this question and be like, "Oh, this is a great question. Now I'm curious." That person
would have the contact.
Would have the contact. There has to be that person. I refuse to believe that person does not exist. Maybe it's David Collins. I don't know. One way or the other. As I said, I'm dying inside.
Quest continues.
But we've done our. I'll stop. Complaining. We've done our article for the week. Cole, is it time to move in to Order 66?
Almost. I'm going to briefly come back to the Bad Batch schedule that I was looking at way earlier that I remembered about. So we have one more standalone episode next week, and then we have the 2-parter the week after that, which is episode 7 and 8, which makes sense. And their titles are very, very interesting. In The Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences.
Truth and Consequences. Is that something else? Or am I just confusing it with The Truth and Reconciliation?
Maybe that's what you're confusing with, or it might just be a phrase that, pre-existing, phrase of some sort. Not sure. But Clone Conspiracy is like, ooh, getting into chip stuff, probably.
Right. Getting into it.
Interesting. Can't wait.
Right, and I actually forgot there was one more kind of inane anecdote I wanted to share before we get into the book as well. Thank you for doing that research, first of all. But Alice and I have started going to the gym. We went actually for the first time yesterday. Just not a big deal, not bragging. It just so happens the story takes place in the gym. It's Planet Fitness, so they've got a bunch of TVs up, and you basically, the way it works, I think, is like you can plug your headphones into the machine you're on and choose which audio feed you want from like a given TV. Well, one of the TVs had TNT, a couple of the TVs had TNT, and it was showing Rogue One yesterday while I was at the gym. Unfortunately, I have Bluetooth headphones, couldn't just plug in and watch that. God, I'm choking on water. I apologize, everybody. But I realized, rather than focusing just on working out, which is what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh my God, I'm gonna take another drink. Rather than focusing just on working out like I'm supposed to be doing, what if I pull up the MP3 audio that I ripped from Rogue One from my personal collection and try to sync it up with the movie as it's playing on the screen while I'm on the elliptical. And would you believe it that mostly through chance, through no precision seeking at all, I did it like basically perfectly.
Nailed
And
it.
I was like, this is so cool. It's like I'm watching Rogue One, you know, I will watch it and hear it. And then it went to commercial and I'm like,
Dang it.
crap, I lost it. Back to my podcast, I guess. I guess I'm going to give up on that. Kind of a bummer. But anyway, sorry. That was
fun,
my done.
then it turned into a bummer.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
Dang it.
Done yammering now. I think it's probably time to move on to Order 66.
Yep. Time to transfer over.
Oh. 1 minute. I don't know if you can. Oh, I can
We
hear you
left
now.
off, I believe.
Yeah, sorry. I
Lose me
lost
for a
you.
second.
I lost you. The stream probably lost you too. I'm gonna make sure I didn't. Oh shit. Hang on. Sorry.
TikTok,
Stream is
TikTok.
good. Can you restart your recording?
Sure thing.
Okay, because I screwed up. Shouldn't have done that.
Stop. Let me go ahead and just export this so that we don't lose anything.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, stream. You get to see the
Get to see how the
podcast
sausage is
sausage
made.
gets made. Yeah. That's on me. I was trying to mute myself so I could have like one good cough and stop dying. But the way I did that was like turning off phantom power.
Have it up, fuzzball.
Yeah. The way I did that was with turning off my phantom power, and I guess my interface didn't like that very well.
Did not like that.
No. Annoying.
This is a nice clean break between the pre-book and post-book or book discussion.
Yeah. God.
And Audacity's just taking its sweet time exporting everything.
That's all right. I feel like there's a lot of action, at least in one of these chapters.
Oh yeah, there's a good bit of action.
It's tense. I don't want to say. I don't want to act like it's not tense. But
okay. And I am back recording, so if we want to do a fresh clap.
Okay.
Probably.
I'm recording as well. Yeah, let's clap. I'll count down. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. I'll bring us back in real quick. Apologies, everyone. I forgot how to podcast there for a minute and lost everything. So, without further ado, Cole has now had plenty of time to prepare his notes for Order 66, and he has assumed the position. I'm still coughing, so I'm glad he's going to start talking, and hopefully I will get this terrible, terrible demon out of my throat. So please, take it away.
Alrighty. Chapter 4. So, we open with a quote from Spar talking about how he won't become Mandalore because, you know, that's too much, but he's okay with Shiza, like, claiming he's Fett's son for the good of the people.
I guess it's the whole thing is very weird. I've yet to see a convincing reason for Shiza to be like,
well, I don't know if I want to get into it this week or not, but I actually have Finn Shiza's and Spar's Wikipedia pages pulled up because the history and all that is extremely complicated and weird and goes way, way back, and that's kind of the reason all of it's happening.
Okay, so this is a retcon.
This is a big retcon.
You mentioned that. You mentioned something about. Okay. Yeah.
This is a retcon that goes back to like the 80s.
Okay. I won't.
With the Marvel comics.
In case other people have not put together the things you said, I will not say them. But I think I know how. I mean, this is.
There's not a whole lot more to, like, we get the gist of what's happening here. I think there's probably a little bit more to come, but you know, maybe one of our interlude episodes we can do a little bit of a deep dive into it or something, because it is fascinating. And from what I was reading, it's like they found a fun retcon, but then more stuff was added later that makes it more complicated, and who knows? Who
Classic.
knows? It's weird stuff, but it's fun overall. So that's part of the reason this whole spar thing is in here, is like connecting to this old school story and trying to make
Okay.
all these things fit together. So it is kind of weird, but it also is interesting how it connects with all the clone stuff, just because clone stuff.
Clone stuff. Okay.
Yeah, clone stuff. So yeah, so Spar is like kind of in, kind of not, but he's mainly just wanting to get paid. That's what it comes down to.
Sure.
It's like, hey, you pay me, you can say whatever you want, but don't expect me to do anything.
And it's because Spar is the clone who defected before they even left Geonosis, right?
Yeah, he defected pre-war.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a interesting backstory, presumably. But yeah, so that's our opening quote, and then we are on Coruscant. It is 930 days after Geonosis. Almost 3
Close.
years.
Getting
Almost 3 years after.
close.
So we're closing in. We're closing in. And find Etane. She's visiting the Kraget, which is the cantina slum place that has become the de facto Scarada clan hangout fortress,
Yeah.
everything. It's where Vinku/Kadika is being kept, and Lacima is mainly like being the mother figure for him, like full time. But there's obviously the entire Scarada extended family being the parents,
Sure,
basically.
exactly.
Because Etane's only able to get days here and there as she's on planet, as she has days off. So, obviously isn't getting the full mother treatment, unfortunately, and it's killing her a little bit every day.
I was gonna say, and it's obvious that she is not very happy about that situation.
Not happy, but also not willing to step away from her responsibilities yet. Even though it's a thought that enters her brain basically every day, she's like, I'm just gonna call it quits at this point.
And see, it's hard too because it's like, I mean, her and Jusik are basically coming at the same problem from different angles, right?
Mhm.
Like, she does not want to leave the clones. She's like, I don't want to abandon the clones, and I don't want that are under my command. I want to keep them safe. And Jusik is basically like, I don't want to abandon them either. That's why
I feel like I can do more.
I can do more
outside
outside
the
the
Jedi.
order. Exactly.
Mhm.
So I'm curious to see how that affects both of them in the coming months.
Mm-hmm.
Because things are not going to be good, I don't think.
Yeah, coming months. Yeah, nothing bad's gonna happen then.
Ugh,
Not at all.
not ready.
Not at all.
Not ready.
And also the CSF hangs out at the Kraget because obviously they're all chums with Scarada and co.
Right.
And they're always asking about Phi, making sure he's cool.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, if he ever comes back, make sure he stops by. We'd all love to see him because he's great.
And I was reminded that, I don't know, maybe you correct me on this, but he dove on the grenade in odds,
Yes.
not
Mhm.
in hard contact.
Right. Yep. Yeah, so he's a straight up hero for all these guys.
Yeah, for sure. Literally saved their lives.
Yep. So, and little Vinku, he's like almost a year old at this point. We've already jumped that far.
Yeah.
It's like man, we're getting on. Like I said, we've jumped like 200 plus days, I think, already in this book.
Right. There's been a lot in this book alone, and you expect there to be some between books as well. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And we find out that Etane, she's basically taken over Barden's old job. She's
Mhm.
overseeing a bunch of the commandos, running, going out, making sure they're all doing good, bringing them snacks because that's what Scarada does. Just, doing her best
right.
with her concussion rifle and her lightsabers, which I love.
I just think of the concussion rifle from like Jedi Knight, and I'm just
Yeah,
like,
that's the
oh,
one I picture too.
I'm just like, oh, is she just doing like explosive jumps? Like shoot the ground and let the force push you up farther.
Basically, yeah. Basically.
I guess that probably doesn't work as well in real life. Whenever it's like you can't really do a grenade jump if you are a human being.
I mean, if
Probably
you're a Jedi, you might could.
Maybe I'm not
use
gonna
the force
assume
to sense exactly the right like distance to be from it, so it gives you a push instead of killing you.
killing you. I'm just not gonna assume that an average human can throw a grenade and like you can in Quake and then jump higher.
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah. So, that's Zetane right now. Sneaking time with her son every time she can, but not nearly enough. But little Venku, he's already like speaking a little bit. He says a mama and you have Lysima and everything. It's all just it's heartwarming but also tragic. All
Yeah,
this stuff.
it is.
All this
It is.
kid stuff. Poor
Well,
Zetane.
it's
Kid's
nice.
getting it good still, but
It is, and it's nice that he still feels the connection with her.
Mm-hmm.
That's like it's not like she's watching him grow up and he is like seeing Lysima as his mom or something. That would have been really rough. So it's nice that that Karen has given us something, something to hold on to.
Yeah. And internally, Etane's struggling with the idea. She's seeing like the direct impact of having these attachments.
Yeah.
And it's like the Jedi like code, like it's like it kind of has a point, but also it kind of sucks because it's like how can we even like relate to normal people whenever we don't have this stuff? It's like how can we sit in judgment over anything whenever we're so cut off from everything? It's like having the debate that so many people have had over the years, basically.
Exactly. I don't know. It's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great
And she
question.
doesn't have an answer either. She's just like, I don't know. She thinks it sucks. All of it sucks. Because she's in this terrible, terrible position, unfortunately. But she's doing what she can. But she determines, she's like, okay, after Omega gets back from Halgrab, after that deployment, I'm gonna tell him we're gonna set all this right at the very least, move forward with it. So kind of lift a little bit of a burden off her. She's like, okay, made a decision on that at least.
Yeah.
So that's probably for the best.
Sure.
So we'll see. We'll see how that turns out too, because there's no way that's gonna be entirely happy.
I don't know, Cole. If I can be honest, I hadn't thought about it that much. I thought it would be an entirely happy thing. But maybe the end of these chapters have made me feel otherwise. Actually.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Seems like there's some. It's gonna be weird.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there.
Yeah. But now we go to Bard and Jusik, and he's also there at the Kraget, and he's all cleaned up, clean shaven for the first time in who knows how long, and all cleaned up just so he can impersonate or portray this health inspector guy, basically.
Right.
Government inspector of some sort, because they've located, or at least they think they've located Dr. Uthin from Hard Contact.
Yes.
I think they located her. They think she's their best hope for unlocking the clone genome stuff. So he's going undercover, trying to sort out. I think he's already done a few of these facilities, like gone through them, trying to locate her. And so they go to this one, the Valorum Center, Chancellor Valorum, or Valorum family at least. I guess it doesn't have to be the one.
I would assume it's probably the family, actually, because the family has been influential for many years,
generations.
The Republic. Yeah, at this point. So
yeah, and it's a facility for like extremely high risk patients with mental problems, basically.
Yeah,
and it's really unnerving. Barden walking through this place, and he's like, he can't see anybody, but he's sensing all these minds that are just in turmoil, and it's very unsettling for him, and he's really kind of freaked out by the whole thing, but also can't tune him out because he's literally searching for Uthin,
right,
trying to like pick out somebody that's not messed up.
Right, and I think that obviously this is jumping ahead a tiny bit, but that little subplot of it's funny because he still has that like goodness, that like wanting, that desire to help, that is characteristic of a Jedi, and he finds that he senses that other presence that is also not like violently crazy.
Yeah,
but he can't do anything about it. He's like, I just got to keep moving. I found what I need. I found what I need to find.
the mission has to come first here for that's what he's determined. And it's like, oh, seeing kind of like downsides, whatever, of his fanaticism, if you want to call it that.
Right. Right.
Like,
the thing is, it's like, well, maybe a Jedi might have done something differently on this mission. A Jedi might have been able to, might have tried to get both of them out, but at the same time, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's a gray situation, to be sure.
Yeah,
Not
and
easy.
at this point, we don't know if this is. I honestly don't remember if this is a thing that comes back or if this is just a one and done. Like, this sucks, but I can't do anything about it, and it's gone. I really don't remember if there's more to this. And there's also, he has a moment where he thinks he hears Mandoa language being spoken or thought or something.
Right.
But seems like he's mistaken. But again, that's another one of those things. Like, is that planting a seed for later? I really don't remember.
It's hard too, because it's just like there's enough doubt where it's like, Juzik, are you like truly fluent? Like, could this be Mandoa or like a dialect and you don't know it? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. There's enough doubt there that makes me wonder what that whole thing was about.
Because it could just be flavor, basically.
Yeah.
But it could be more significant.
It could be
than
so much more.
That's just the way these things go. But
I know.
Eventually he manages to subtly manipulate this attendant guy into taking him to Uthin, who is the one patient there. He's like, this lady really kind of convinces me that she's not really crazy because of how consistent she is and how focused and everything.
Right.
But obviously she has to be here for a reason, so whatever. But
whatever.
And brings him there, and it's Dr. Uthin, and she is genetically breeding flies just to pass the time, because of course.
Just reminds me of high school biology too. Stupid fruit flies. I remember all that. I hate genetics. Never show me a Punnett square. Never show me a Punnett square again. I'm not like that with most things from school. Genetics are kind of one of them. Never liked it.
I don't remember much about genetics from high school, honestly.
It's probably fine.
Yeah, it's probably fine. I don't really care that much, honestly.
I don't think either of us need to know that much about it.
No. I'm getting all the genetic stuff I need out of this book, probably.
Right.
Fake sci-fi genetic stuff. That's fine.
Yes, that's all we need.
So, Uthin is not crazy, but Juzik does notice that she's like, maybe like starting to go a little stir crazy just from being in this place.
Right.
'Cause she's been captured for a long time at this point. It's been
what, like
almost
2 years?
like 2.5 to 3 years. Yeah.
2 and change. Yeah.
And been shuffled around to different facilities and just, being silenced. Even though she's literally telling everyone there what she really is and telling the truth. But because this is a crazy person place, nobody believes her. So, they said, it's like Palpatine's really smart hiding people like this. So, makes you wonder about that other guy that's not crazy. He's like, oh, is this just another like political prisoner of some sort?
I know. That's why I was kind of thinking, okay, well, yeah, is this important? I don't know. And then Juzik is just like, she's talking about him seeing that like she's not crazy. She is still Uthin. And the guy there is just like, yeah, I don't know. She's very consistent, delusion, all this stuff. And June's like, yes, this is exactly what I want to hear. She is still herself. She
still got it. So yeah, hopefully she'll be useful.
He's thinking this, but then he's like, oh yeah, she's a real loony one. Having to act like he's not exactly what he wants to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta play the part. So, target located, now, prison break time, presumably. Or mental facility break. Whatever you call it.
Captivity break.
Yeah. And then we go to Haugab. However you say it.
Sure.
And if you'll remember, Omega's situation was pretty hectic last time we left them. They were under attack after performing an assassination. And things have not gotten better. They're basically in exactly the same moment, and things are not good. They're very, very much outnumbered, and just not a good situation. They can't get through to the base for the pickup. So Darman improvises like all their detonators into one package and blows up half the mountain they're on, basically. Which does grant them time, but also makes them basically, completely stranded.
Yeah, my favorite thing that stood out about that sequence was when Dharma is just like, "Oh my god, I can't feel the ground. Did I
Mhm.
did I blow my legs off? Did I hurt myself?" And he realizes, "Oh no, I'm just flying through the air. There's no
Yeah,
ground there's no ground to
there's no ground
touch."
beneath me. So, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm just flying.
I'm
Oh,
flying. Oh, that means I'm gonna hit the ground.
that might be bad.
I did think it was funny too, though, because like there's one point I don't remember who it is, but says like, the Mandos have really got it that we should really, really give
Yeah, I love
Commandos
that
jetpacks
nearly
as a
every
standard.
time the Omega's on a mission, they realize some piece of equipment that they need.
They don't have
It's like, man, matte black armor. That's what we need. And then
jetpack.
they
That's
finally
what we
get
need.
it. Jetpack. That's what we need.
Yeah, it was good.
It's like,
There was-
Mandos are never stranded like this. They have jetpacks.
Yeah, I mean, is there stuff that stood out to you? Is there more here? Because there's moments that stood out to me about this whole sequence, rather than like the sequence itself, since it's just kind of a long action sequence, The Last Stand, basically.
Yeah, now that's basically all I've got in it.
Okay, because I thought the parts where they're the repeated mentions of before this and leading up to this point, where the repeated mentions of like how they will basically be, if they are captured, they will be tortured and then killed. Like, they will not be treated well. So you've got like Niner and
These guys want
Core.
them alive. They're not just trying to kill them.
Exactly. And Niner and Core are
Yeah.
basically ready to be like, we're keeping one grenade back. Like, we are
Mhm.
not going out
Hey,
with them.
we're not going to be captured. We'll end it ourselves. We'll
And then
we want clean deaths.
right. And then you've got Darman and Atin who are like, I don't know if I want to blow myself up. Like there's just a lot.
We have significant others back, and
Darman thinking,
Darman constantly thinking, "Oh, I should have left a message for Etane, and I didn't do it." And
don't know the last time I talked to her, and it's rough. It's rough. We're glossing over it, but if you're not reading the book along with us, you don't, I think, can really realize how bleak it really seems. It's bad.
It's like they're in these dangerous situations, but now that they have all these attachments going on, it's just everything hurts more. Everything has more significance every time they're almost killed. It's like, oh my gosh.
Right, but
think of all the people this is going to affect.
Right, but they're still so well trained that it doesn't really affect their performance. It's yet to affect their performance in battle. Like they're still a finely tuned unit. But it's just like, and then once the sandstorm moves in and the rebels get right up on them and they can't see each other, and I think is it Darman who just stabs that one guy in the leg, and he's like, well, that was I stabbed him in the leg, but I got his his femoral artery or whatever. He's done.
He's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like it's so up close and just it's just rough,
brutal, intense, so close combat. Nasty.
It's bad. And then of course their dropship shows up, but then their AVAC finally shows up. It's an intense. It is one of.
It's a very messy and intense combat section.
It is one of the more intense combat sections that we've had throughout the entire series to this point, for sure.
Yeah, because it really feels like it's like, man, this like they're screwed.
Someone's
really
what
it feels like.
I did think that somebody was going to die. Like someone's not going to make it out of this one. And I thought it could have been Darman. It's unlikely, but it could have been Darman.
Yeah.
I think that. I mean, if I had to rank them in terms of like survivability, I honestly think Darman is like high on the list to die, because I feel like we have the most invested with him. Niner is going to have too interesting of a story going forward when things finally start to break, and they want
seeing how he falls,
seeing where he falls in the whole thing. Core, I don't feel like we spent enough time with. I don't feel like Karen Travis would have added him to the squad if he wasn't going to be more significant. And Atin, kind of the same thing. We haven't spent as much time with him recently. It would definitely be, it would have to be Darman right there, I think. But at least if you're following, kind of standard storytelling tropes. But I thought he could die. It was rough, but then they get out of there and they're they're joking with each other, and they're like, the narration is just like, oh well, the reality of the situation, how close they came to death, will sit in later. At this point,
Mhm.
it is just a matter of they're just
Oh,
happy
we
to be
made
out
it.
of it. Yeah, right. I love that they describe once they hear the LAAT, they're just like, oh, you can't mistake that sound.
Mhm.
That is a safe
Yeah,
sound.
and I think there's been a consistent thing that Niner usually hears it first.
Yeah, as a
That's been a consistent thing, and he's like, "Do you hear that?" And they're like, they don't hear it, and then they're like, "Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
thank God it's happening.
it's over. We're back. We're good, baby."
That Katarn armor has, I mean, how many Darman gets shot like 3 or 4 times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like,
Well, at
guys
the
can-
end of it, he's got a shot like through his like
right
neck
through his
thing.
yeah.
It's like, oh man, you nearly lost your head, brother.
I don't
It
know.
was nearly bad.
Yeah, so there's not a ton to talk about plot wise,
Mhm.
but just individual
Yeah.
moment wise, it's a very, very impactful sequence. So I don't
Mhm.
I want to make that known. I don't want to just gloss over it because it was riveting to read, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Scary at every
Yeah.
step of the way.
And it's we get a brief conversation with Captain Mays
Yeah.
back at base, where he's the one that they call for evac because they can't raise the like local base. So he's the one that has to get them contact with somebody that can help them out. And then, as you mentioned, they finally get on the lat and get out of there. And the clone sergeant that they're with is he's a brand new guy,
Oh yeah.
which is really interesting because he like Darman's like talking to him, and he's doing the classic like saying all the Mandoa stuff,
Right.
swearing and everything like that. And the guy's like, "What? What are you saying?" And turns out this guy knows none of it. Nervode?
Yeah. He's got nothing. And I glossed over this one because it's way weirder later when that comes up.
Yes.
So
yes,
that's
yeah,
why I forgot
Yeah,
about
we'll
this
go
one.
we'll go more into it later. But yeah, this is our first encounter with these supposedly new clones, where he even says he's like, "Hey, I'm new, and I
Right.
don't know what you're talking about." And Darman's like, "Huh, that's extremely strange." But
He saved us.
okay,
I'm not going to worry about it
you
right
saved
now.
us. I can't be mad, but
Odd.
he's like, I better talk to Scarada about this because that's very strange. I thought because apparently all the clones are taught the Vodon.
Vodon, yeah, at
Yeah.
least.
That's part of the flash learning. So it's like they should definitely know that at least. They may not know
Unless-
all the other stuff, but
unless they're not being cloned on Camino.
exactly. Clone conspiracy.
Did I figure it out? It's been made pretty clear, I think. Bethany has basically been like, there's, she's doing the Pepe Sylvia from Always Sunny with all.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. Yeah, so I'm not.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I'm not putting together anything that wasn't already put together, basically.
Yes. All right. Now we go to Mandalore and Keldaby or Kel. How do you say the? I say
I would
Keldaby
say-
usually, but it doesn't make sense to
I
me.
would say Keldabe.
Keldabe.
So we're basically in the same boat, I think.
Because I feel like it also could just be Keldabe.
It could be Keldabe. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know, because I feel like the Mandalorian stuff, like, I think it's supposed to be like, it's Nervode and Nervode, I think, like pronunciation wise. Like I've looked at it before and I'm like, oh crap, I'm saying this wrong. But
Oh, okay. So you think
You know
you're
what I
saying
mean?
it. You think the E is pronounced as A. It is said.
I
It is
think.
not. Okay.
based on some of the other Mandoa stuff I've seen, that's like in my head, that's how I see it. But so I say
Okay.
Keldabe usually, but it's like that's just in
It's
my
all a
brain.
guess.
That's what it goes through.
It's all a guess. It's all made
Yeah,
up.
it's all a
It's
guess
made
because I
up.
haven't.
Who cares?
I've never listened to the audiobook where somebody pronounced it, and
Well,
even
it's-
that doesn't guarantee it's right.
No, it doesn't. Oh, I can speak to that, especially throughout the 90s.
Coruscant.
Coruscant. Oh my god, dude. It trips me up every single time. Every time. I love that Dark Empire audio adaptation, but with we're 45 seconds in and the narrator is reading the opening crawl and says Coruscant, and it's like, oh, I gotta sit down. I
No.
I gotta sit down.
But the thing is, I'm pretty sure that that's a real word, or it's based on a real word.
Huh.
So it's like one of those things like it's probably like kind of right. You know, weirdly, because I think
I
Tim Zahn, like, it's based on something real. It's not like a made up word entirely. I don't think.
okay. I
I, I'm
want I
I'm
I
not
want to.
positive, but
Okay.
I think that's right actually. So the George Lucasification of Coruscant is maybe not correct.
Oh no.
Am I right?
In the real world, the word originates from the late 15th century from the Latin coruscant. Like it's spelled the same way,
Mhm.
vibrating, glittering, from the verb coruscare. It is described in the concise Oxford Dictionary as a poetic and literary adjective meaning glittering, sparkling. The word coruscant, coruscant, like I don't know, is also a French adjective which means glittering, sparkling, and as a
Mhm.
literary adjective can be used to describe a decadent and overly complicated language, decorum, or community.
Yeah, like I said, Zahn didn't make it up.
It's literally just a word.
It's a word. It's a like not a very common word, like an old school word, but
Yes.
still a word. So it's
Damn.
like I think we are pronouncing it wrong, but
I refuse. Cole, I have watched the movie.
sorry to break your brain a little bit, but
No, I refuse. I refuse. But thank you for that little bit of info.
yeah,
That is interesting. And
it's one of the things that Tim Zahn gave us. The name of Coruscant. That's from him. It made it into the movies.
it did. I never
One of
thought
those cool things.
it is. It is. Anyway, Coruscant.
Yeah. Sorry everyone if you didn't know that and didn't want to know that.
Now you do.
Now you know. So, Mandalore. We're back with Fi and Parja because obviously we want more suffering with them because that's just how things work.
Yeah, it is.
But they're in the capital now, which is, it's a big city compared to where they've been. Big city.
Air quotes, big city. Yeah.
Fi's been to Coruscant, but
Yeah.
at this point in his life, this is still pretty overwhelming because he's still dealing with some stuff. But
Right.
again, he's still improving, slowly, steadily, still improving. But
He's
they're
yeah,
there, yeah,
he's noticeably better.
yeah,
He's
yeah. It's not
noticeably better
like
here.
every time we see him, he's a little bit better.
Yeah.
It's really nice. It's like, oh, he really feels like there's some hope there.
It
which
does.
is really, really encouraging.
And really scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that hope just makes it so much harder whenever the pain
If it
happens,
doesn't
right?
if it doesn't go the way we want it to. But
Yeah, yeah. But they're there to meet Finn Shiza at the main cantina, the OU bait, I think. OU
Sure.
bait?
Sure.
Something like that. Yeah. The main cantina there in Keldaby. And, basically they're just there to reject his proposal about becoming Mandalore or whatever he wants. So, pretty straightforward. But when they get to the cantina, inside there's Finn Shiza, obviously, but he's also there with Spar and Soul, which is interesting. So, oh, I wasn't sure if we'd see that guy again.
right. I had a feeling, but I wasn't sure.
Because he wasn't like super like gung ho Mando or anything.
No, it's like he
But
was just trying to get away. That was his
seems like
whole
he's
thing.
found somewhat of a home or place to be. So
Mhm.
it's kind of nice, but it's also a little bit of a confrontation whenever we meet these guys. But basically, Shiz has been pitching the same thing to all of them. It's like, hey, I really need one of you guys to step up and be Mandalore. Just really need it, please. And they've all basically told him no. But Spar, at the very least, again, going back to that quote at the beginning of the chapter, is like, hey, if you want to walk around, say that I'm Fett's long lost son for whatever reason, if it'll help, whatever, cool. I'm not going to stop you, but also don't expect me to do anything. So, very much in it just for himself.
Right.
So.
Probably not exactly what Fenchise is looking for.
Not really, but he's also like, hey, I'll take what I can get.
Sure.
So, yeah. And I think I'll go into just a tiny bit of what the background and all this stuff is. So, in one of those old comics in like 1983, I think it was,
Okay.
there's some backstory about Finn Shiza like fighting with Boba Fett in the Clone Wars.
Right.
And him being Mandalore. And this is basically like retconning it so that it was actually Spar that was doing that.
That's
not
what I figured.
Boba Fett.
Because you talked about Boba. You talked about the retconning basically addressing Boba showing up somewhere in
Yes.
history that he should not have been.
Right. It's like, it's one of those things that it was fine up until we learned that Boba Fett was only 10 years old at this point.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, that no longer works. And I think it's also like in the story, like it's like a flashback or like being told by somebody else or something. It was like Boba Fett was being hired by Emperor Palpatine to kidnap Princess Leia in the flashback, and so they retconned it so it's Sidious hiring Spar to capture Padme.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff going on to make it all like make any kind of sense.
I do like that there was an effort.
Yeah.
I do respect the effort, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a little odd.
Yeah. It is definitely odd, and it's one of those things that I want to dig into it deeper at some point, but I haven't really done it yet. But it's
look
like,
forward to
it's interesting. It's interesting seeing them like try to make all these pieces kind of fit together.
It is, and that's part of the. I mean, for as nitpicky as I can be about canon, sometimes that's part of the fun. Sometimes is seeing how they've jerry rigged everything to fit together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Fi's like, "Hey, I'm out," and Shiza. Thankfully, Shiza's not like a sleazeball about it. He's like, "Hey, I had to ask, had to try." He's cool.
He is.
He's not, you know.
I remember feeling like, hey, dude, I kind of liked you in Shadows of Mindor. What are you doing now? But I like that he is just like, okay, I'll back off. Whatever.
Yeah, he's not pressing the issue. He's like, hey,
Nope.
I'm asking. If you do it, great. But, is that he's not putting any real pressure. He's like,
No.
like, hey, I really want this, but I'm not going to force you.
Still cool.
And obviously,
Still cool.
I couldn't force you.
Yeah, we're still cool with Finn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's not a scumbag, which is nice to see. But in walks Barton Jusek, now, in full Mando gear, because that's what he is now. And unfortunately, this draws the attention of one Soul and sparks a little bit of a confrontation.
Yeah.
Because Saul's asking questions like, hey, you were the one overseeing all the commandos and everything. It's like, do you know anything about why there was put a hit on me and everything? And Jusek's like, obviously, I don't know anything. You think I would have done anything like that? I cared about my clones, but Saul's being very, very, very aggressive about the whole thing, and even kind of like twitches towards his gun. And this triggers Fi pretty hard.
Yeah, and this is the thing I was referring to with Fi earlier. It's an interesting development. Is this happens? Fi flies off the handle, starts fighting him, has to get pulled off him, and this whole thing. It's a big fight that thankfully doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, it's basically just like one really good punch, and then they hold him back. But he is like raging hard, and like if they hadn't held him, he probably would have pummeled Soul something fierce.
And it's really hard because you're watching Fi be better. Like, kind of crack some jokes, be funny, more like the Fi that we remember. But then this happens. And he's like,
Yeah.
I would never have done that before I got hurt. What happened? Is this me now? Like, and it's almost worse that he remembers that, like, I was not like that.
Yeah.
That was not me.
It's a bittersweet development, because there's also like, he was talking like really like fluently, and he was acting way more confidently than he has been, but also it's like he was just going crazy. Basically, he went berserk. It's like it's a trade-off, unfortunately.
I get the feeling that Karen Travis has done some research in this field, because the nuance that all these clones have, the veteran, like the Fi being an injured veteran, and I'm just like, just knowing the kind of fiction that she writes and the things that she's interested in. I think she's probably talked to some people who've lived this experience.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I really think so too.
It's hard.
I think it's all based in real stuff.
Yeah. It's just hard to think about.
Which makes it hit as hard as it does.
It does. But anyway, yeah, that's a rough scene. Not because Saul didn't necessarily deserve the hit, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
But
seeing him lose control, it's not good.
Hard. Because it makes you given the title of the book, it makes you wonder what's going to happen. It makes you wonder where he's going to fall in the whole thing. So I don't know, man.
Yep. Very true. Very true. That takes us to chapter 5, and chapter 5 has is a very amusing quote to begin it to me at least. It's a quote from somebody at Rothana Engineering.
Oh,
It's like
this is
talking about it's like this huge order of ships and stuff, and he's like, this is even bigger than the last time. And how long are we gonna have to hold this thing?
this kind
Is
of
it gonna be in storage for 10 years like it was last time?
this kind of answered my question. I've asked this
Yeah.
question multiple times, and it turns
It's so
out
funny. It's like
they.
it's a humorous thing, but it's also like, oh, that's interesting.
I'm so glad she addressed it.
Yeah.
That like obviously they have this whole logistical backbone of this army, all these vehicles. RHE just had them in storage for 10 years.
Yeah. I just imagine like almost like the Katana fleet just sitting out in
sitting
space,
there.
like, I guess they'll come get this at some point. It's already been paid for.
They
so
paid up. Yeah, it's like
who
what are we
cares?
gonna do?
But-
Tear it apart?
It's like it's an amusing thought. It's like, oh, that's fun that they put this in here. It's like, oh, it answers a legitimate question and it's kind of funny.
It is. It was a good. I was happy to read it.
Yeah. So, and then the first part of that chapter is actually the last part of the Howgab bit we'd already talked about. So I'm just gonna skip over that
okay,
again.
Okay.
Talk about all of that once made more sense anyway. And then we are on the Redeemer, a Republic ship, not New Republic, a Republic ship. And it is now 940 days DAG, so it's been a couple days. The Howgab incident has kind of all happened and cleared off, at least somewhat.
Yeah.
Things have come out, and we get a fun cameo here. Did you know this was coming?
No, I had
At
no
all?
idea. I had no idea. But I
So
was
fun,
like,
right?
oh, my heart.
Yeah, yeah. So we find out Ordo is fascinated by this new group of Jedi that have joined them, who are amongst which is Callista.
Callista.
Yes,
there
that
she is.
Callista.
And I was just like, is it the same one? I remember Jyn Altus. I know that name.
Jyn Altus.
This is her. This is the same one.
Yeah,
was very
his
fun.
his sect of the Jedi, which are way more, loose about the attachment stuff. They're like an older school sect. And
Which is funny.
interesting.
It was interesting because I feel like it would have felt kind of, for me anyway, having the context helped, because I would have felt like, okay, this is a little out of place, whatever, like,
Mhm.
yeah, it just whatever. It just feels very shoehorned. Like, of course, she's got Jedi that are not traditional, but
Mhm.
they're like, it's got layers, because back in '95, whenever it was, Children of the Jedi came out. Luke, we didn't know about the Jedi.
Mhm.
We had Tales of the Jedi, right? And those Jedi are obviously much looser with attachment. So it makes
Mhm.
sense that Callista allows herself to get attached to Luke because she is from a different, I don't know.
Yeah.
I love how it all came together.
It all dovetails really nicely.
It
in a
does,
weird way.
especially for them to be in the book for like 2 paragraphs.
Yeah. Oh, and this isn't the last we see of it. I don't
Okay.
think there's not like a ton, but there is a little bit more,
A little
which
more?
is nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting insertion. It's like, oh, yeah, and it's also like, oh, okay, so this is the time frame she was from,
Right.
which is interesting. It's like long term. It's like, I bet there's some more questions that you'd have to
Sure,
come
sure.
up with, but whatever. It's still very interesting, and it also gives Etain this like, oh, there's other options theoretically.
Right.
Gives her something to think about. And Ordo's like, man, these other Jedi, he's almost like, man, these Jedi don't know what they think. They don't know. They need to get their act together. They're all
It's
over
like,
the place.
Why can't Etain just do this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. See, it is weird to me though, because I am interested in that. Because has the Jedi Order ever kicked somebody out?
Good question.
I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that has actually been kicked out. There have obviously been
Mhm.
people who have left.
Like excommunicated from the Jedi Order.
Right. Because it's like if someone like it seems like this group of Jedi under these multiple Padawans under Jyn Altus
Mm-hmm.
are very blatantly kind of flying in direct opposition to like the tenets of the Jedi Code and the will of the Council.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas someone like Qui-Gon wasn't quite as, it's like he does only have one Padawan at a time technically, or like intends to, and is kind of very following the rules to the letter, if not to the intention. Whereas this group is just flaunting them. So I can't imagine if they hadn't been kicked out. No
And it
one
does
would
seem like
probably-
they've been separated from the main Jedi Order
Yeah.
for a while, and that they're just being brought in as like extra reinforcements of some sort.
Yeah.
We're not really given much context for it. We're just
No.
given these little bits. And so I was like, oh, okay, these guys are being brought in, and they're even like Ordo and Etain. They're all worried, like, hey, I told my commanders, if they give stupid orders, just don't follow.
I feel like too, I just keep thinking about the connections with Children of the Jedi now. Jin Altus also mentions it's stated that he will take Padawans who are older, who are basically anyone who's force sensitive he'll take. And I'm like, oh well, that even explains Callista, or potentially explains Callista remembering her home world and her family.
Yeah.
Just all the little, like you said, dovetails very nicely, remembering all these little details. And sorry if you haven't read Children of the Jedi yet, but she's in it. Spoiler.
Yeah, she's in it, and also some other stuff possibly, but
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
And if you had no idea who it was, it's like, oh, this is random Jedi. They're kind of different.
Sure, exactly. Doesn't matter.
It's not really a big deal. Not a really big deal at all. But what is a big deal is that also on the Redeemer we have Cal Scarada and the entire Null Arc team.
They're all.
It's the first time we've
together.
seen all of them.
It is,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
They've all
Also
come
very
together
scary.
kind of to have a little sit down with Cal.
It's very scary seeing them all there, right there. Like if something sets them off, it's gonna be really bad.
Oh, they could take over the whole shit by themselves.
They
probably.
could take the whole shit by themselves. Very dangerous men.
Yeah, but they've all come together because they want to have a sit down with Cal, and main point is like, hey, you're gonna get your ankle fixed. You stop limping around, carrying it around. You're gonna get it fixed. We've already booked you an appointment. You're gonna do it. It's like kids with their
Stop.
parents.
Exactly. Stop putting it off.
And the other thing is like, and we're gonna find your daughter. We're gonna do it. Just don't worry about it. We've got it covered. We're not, we're not mad about any of it. We're just, hey, we're gonna do the job.
Yep.
We're in. And Cal formally adopts all the rest of
Adopts all
them.
of them,
So
yep.
now they're all formally his sons, not just Ordo. Which
Yeah.
Ordo, I love that Ordo's like, he's been self-conscious about the thing
Yeah.
the whole time. Is like, oh, I hate that I'm the only one because it makes me feel self-conscious about being favorited.
But at the same time, since we've spent so much time with Ordo and literally no time with some of these,
Yeah, Muriel's the only one we spent significant time with.
yeah, I'm always just like, but Ordo is the favorite. You know what I mean? I'm just like, what does this mean for him? And, obviously Cal goes into that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Or Cal and Etain, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what does all this mean for him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And they also, compare some notes on Intel and talk about the clones that Darman and Omega encountered. And this is where we get some other like fun connection stuff where they talk about Sparty clones.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
On Kartau, which is that's a Zahn short story.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's like connecting the Sparty clones into the greater cloning stuff, making
Okay,
it make
right.
sense within.
Make a little more
I
sense.
think Kinman Doriana's in that story. I
Really?
think. Yeah, I think it's one of the few appearances he shows up in, which is fun. I think the short story is called Hero of Kartau. I think is the name of it.
I'm looking at it. That seems familiar. Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't
so
realize-
they speculate that the syntax to cloning facility is Sparty clones, and that they can clone fully grown troopers in a year, which tracks with what we know about Sparty cloning.
right.
But also, they also like, are those clones gonna be any good?
Yeah, Hero of Kartau. You're right.
Mm-hmm. I think I've read at least part of that one. I think, but I don't remember where that one was published. Does it say where that was published? Is that
was
Insider?
It's in Star Wars Insider. It's a little older. It looks like issue 68, 69, 70.
Mm-hmm.
2003 is when that one came out.
Yeah. Hopefully that one will get published in the fiction collection at some point.
Wait. So, oh God. So this
What?
is even this is well before Outbound Flight even.
Yes, it is.
Zahn is still setting the groundwork for Outbound Flight before he gets to write that stupid book. Incredible.
Yep. Yep.
Incredible.
And then Karen Travis is looping all of it in here in a fun
Yep.
way too, which is because this is years after that, which is fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's like seeing all these little threads all kind of pulled together in a
It's real nice.
satisfying way. Yeah. So clones coming in from Syntax 2, and they're like, yeah, they must be like field testing some of them because they, want to make sure they can still, perform somewhat
Right.
adequately.
Right.
Makes sense, but still strange because there hasn't been any word on more clones being added to the deployment.
Mm-hmm.
It's all been very, very hush hush. Just random chance that Omega ran into one of them.
Right. Sketchy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. And after they've had their little powwow, they all go have dinner in the main wardroom, which is like I think technically only supposed to be for like officers. And so a young ensign Comp Nor officer takes exception to them being there and gets serious.
Did you say
I said Comp Nor, it's Compor.
Compor. I was gonna say it's
Yeah.
something different. Man,
Similar idea, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's 100%. This is a lead into Imperial rule. This guy might be my least favorite character in this entire series to this point. I don't remember his name.
He's so hateable.
He is so hateable. And I don't even remember the stupid Nemoidian in Hard Contact. Didn't like that. Lick Anket? Was that guy's name?
I think that's right.
Yeah. I just looked at it recently, so I think that's why it came up. But that might have been one of my least favorite characters to this point. He has been well eclipsed by this stupid ensign. I hate this guy. He's terrible.
He's easy to hate. He's easy to hate.
Even all the other like non-clone officers are like, "Thank you for doing." At the end of this, are like, "Thank you for doing."
Were like, this guy was a jerk.
Thank you for doing what we couldn't do.
We've
But
all
also,
wanted to do that.
Also, he's kind of outside this traditional command structure, I'd imagine.
It's true.
He's
Yeah.
Compor. He's not just like
He's like a
BAR.
political officer.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, as we all know, scary in its own right. Seeing
Yes,
where things
indeed.
are headed quickly. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
continue. Please
Yeah,
elaborate
but,
as to what happens.
Yeah, so he's like saying, he's like, clone, what are y'all doing in here? Taking exception to them having guests in the wardroom. And Ordo, of course, is like, hey, we can have whatever we want in here. He quotes regulation to him, does everything, but the guy's like, you're a clone. You have to do what I say. And Ordo, Ordo, he's
Wham!
like, does not take like disrespect to himself, but more importantly, disrespect to Cal Scarada.
Yep.
And so he hammers that into him with his forehead,
Literally decks him, puts him on his ass,
and
dude.
then forces him to apologize.
It's so good.
And then after he leaves, everyone's like claps, like, yeah, good job.
I definitely think the real point, since nothing seems to have come of it, I'm thinking that either A, this will come up later, or B, it is truly there for the people who know what like Compnor is, and I don't know if Compor had been it's like commission for the protection of the new order is Compnor. Or something like that. Basically, it's another branch of the Empire's secret police, and I would imagine that Compor is what grows into that.
Is a prelude into that,
Exactly. So it's possible.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
It's possible this comes back later as a problem, but it's also possible that this is just to establish, oh, this exists, and those in the know know what this is.
Yeah.
And what this probably is. So
it's a sign of things to come, if nothing else.
Yeah, not good, one way or the other.
Yeah. So, Ordo, being the stand-up guy that he always is, just headbutting dissident people.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And then later on, Cal finally calls his son, Tor, back and gets some information on what happened with his daughter. Turns out they don't know very much at all, that they just literally like lost contact with her. She might not even really be missing.
Right, she might just
Might have
be...
just gallivanting because she seems like kind of the free spirit type.
Yeah, I get the feeling that's not what's happening, but
Probably not,
yeah,
because drama and story.
right, yeah.
But at least from the outset, it's like, oh, okay, this may not even be very serious, but obviously we'll take care of it. And it's a very awkward conversation with this son that he hasn't seen in years and years at this point.
And I mean, I don't know what to think throughout that conversation, and I feel like that's really well written because Cal doesn't know what to think either. Like there's some awkwardness there, but Cal does call him son, I think, at one point.
He does.
And it's like there's awkwardness, for sure, because they haven't spoken forever, and obviously that Tor does not look like Tor did when Cal last spoke to him. And Cal's been sending them money or whatever, and they've been taking it, and Etain calls that out, but then Tor is kind of like, listen, all this like disowning stuff that was to please mom, like we didn't really do it. And I'm like, well, I don't know how much of that I believe. I don't know what to believe. Cal doesn't know what to believe. Cal doesn't know how to feel. He is like, they're still my sons, I'm going to help them.
Yeah,
but
it's a super messy situation no matter how you look at it.
It is, and it left me feeling very
and
conflicted.
Like Etain mentioned, it's like this all happened when they were adults. Like it wasn't like they were kids and they did all this.
Yes.
This was like 10 years ago or something. They were like already in their 20s and 30s. It's like, yeah, sure, you may have been doing this to please mom, but also you could have done whatever you wanted to do because you were an adult.
Exactly.
And you could have reached out since then and apologized or whatever.
And you didn't.
So,
but at the same time, I have to imagine it's hard to do that once you disown your father. I can't say I've ever disowned my father.
Yeah.
So I don't
imagine.
know. I can't imagine. It's probably very difficult. So I'm curious to see how this all shakes out and what it means for Cal and what it means for the clones, honestly, because I imagine they feel a little weird about the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, Ordo definitely deliberately steps in and, makes himself known, his presence known to Tor.
Right.
And makes it clear that, hey, Cal's my dad.
Right.
It's like he is your dad biologically, but he's my father, and he's been my father for a long time at this point.
Yeah, maybe longer than you if we go on our biological ages.
Exactly. So
I don't know.
Yeah. So Cal, clearly he's gonna try to find his daughter. He's gonna do whatever it takes, and Etain is off doing another one of her squad missions. Going out to see another one of the squads because that's what she does. She just goes and checks them out, gives them candy, just giving them treats because that's what they do.
Right.
And chapter 6, and our quote for this chapter is from Master Kukruk.
Right. Yeah.
Talking about why he exiled himself and refused to fight anymore, but apparently shortly after this went and fought some more anyway, which is interesting.
I'm sure there are comics fans that are very excited. I know who he is. I have not read. I know he's in the Dark Times comics.
I know him basically entirely from the micro series because he's one of the Jedi that fights Grievous.
Right. So I don't know a ton. I'm excited to learn more. I know
he always looked cool.
I know he is a well-loved character. So one day.
Yeah. Fun Easter egg for people that are big fans of this guy.
Exactly. And also, I mean, I think even if you don't know who he is, it's kind of shocking to be like, okay, this is a Jedi who has exiled himself due to the conflict, but is now being brought back.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder.
I think gives you some more context for the Alta sect, where they're like, the Jedi were probably reaching out to them like, hey, we could use all the help we can get. Even though we know there's kind of some tension here between us. Right. So even though it's funny because I don't remember where the conversation happens. There's some conversation between Barden and Etain talking about how in the war proper they really haven't lost that many Jedi.
Right.
It's like at Geonosis there was a lot lost, but since then it's really been pretty sporadic. So, and it's
which
foreshadowing.
I was gonna say this is making me think: is it all the Jedi facing external pressure to bring more Jedi into the fold, so that they're all together when the time
totally
comes?
makes sense, right?
Yeah. So
And again, I don't remember where it is, but there's a moment where I think it's Ordo wondering, like marveling at whoever was planning all this stuff and how
Yeah.
much they planned all of it. Like,
It's like,
yeah,
oh my
yeah, Ordo, you have no
god,
idea.
you really don't know, dude.
The chess
You
master is at play here.
really don't know.
Yeah. All right, so we're back on Hargab, and it's been like another month and a half, and now we have Etane and Omega and Delta all in the same place,
Right.
all in Hargab, and the Republic presence there has just grown and grown ever since then, which is interesting, even though there's like nothing of value there, and they honestly, Etane, it feels like they could just pull out and nothing would change.
Makes you wonder, and see, it's hard to
Makes you wonder.
You can kind of piece together like they might be pulling more Jedi into the fold. I can't figure out why they're here. You know, so it's like I'm sure there's a reason, and Sidious has a reason, but I don't.
I'm
know
sure
what
too.
I
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
And it might just be as simple as like, hey, I want, a significant number of clones anywhere there's Jedi,
Right.
so that whenever the order goes down, we're likely to get them.
Sure.
Just spread them out as much as possible, surround them by as many troops as you can, and we're just increasing our odds of killing as many of them as we can. It's like, that might be as simple as it is, but there might be something else going on.
Yeah.
We don't really know. Yeah. So they're all on Hargab doing their stuff, and we're focused on Scorch this chapter.
For better or for worse.
Yeah. Yes. Scorch and Fire are definitely like kindred spirits in a lot of ways, aren't they?
Yeah.
Both the funny guys
and with a dark
both
streak.
cracking under pressure in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because there's not much happening on Hargab, even though there's a bunch of military presence, it's kind of just a lot of sitting around, not a lot of actual action. They're just there. Scorch's mind is wandering a lot because he doesn't have a lot to do. And this is bad because he thinks too much. Poor Delta. Poor Delta. They're just...
I'm trying to
they're
think
so
of,
broken in so many ways.
We spend so little time with Fixer and Boss, though.
Mm-hmm.
Every time they even come up, I'm just like, oh yeah, you guys are here. It's always Sev and Scorch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that's about.
I think it's because Sev and Scorch are the most defined personalities.
Fair enough. Fixer's
So
just kind of...
I do think we get some good Fixer stuff here, where he's just like trying to like keep Scorch focused.
Sure.
Like he's the straight man. Like he's literally the straight man trying to keep Scorch like, hey, get your mind back where it's supposed to be. And, like continually trying to push him to that every time.
And I guess realistically, Boss is the most boring, since he is the player character in the game.
He's player character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you're right.
Yeah. They focus on the two that are the most interesting on their own. And since they're not like really the main characters, it makes sense to focus on them.
You don't think it's kind of funny? They're basically Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm. Basically.
Boss Leonardo, Fixer's Donatello, Raphael is Sev. Yeah, Michelangelo it's Scorch.
Yeah, it's a classic four-man archetype,
It is.
The colors don't quite match up, but it's not that far off either.
No. They're all...
In fact, it's just Boss, right? Aren't the other ones actually the same?
No, because I thought Fixer was green. Donatello's purple.
Okay, Fixer's green, you're right.
Yeah.
But Sev is red and Scorch is yellow.
Yellow,
orange,
orange,
basically.
yeah.
Yeah. It is pretty spot on, isn't it?
I love it.
But yeah, while Scorch's mind is wandering, he's thinking about all kinds of stuff, and he's even speculating on, it's like, hey, you think Scarada's grandson is actually like a clone's kid?
It's like, dude, shut up.
And then Fixer is the one that's like, hey, could even be Etane and Darman's.
It's like, what? What are you doing?
Like I said, they've got too much time to think, and they're like, they're smart.
They're gonna figure it out.
Oh, it's so funny. So funny. Listen, that's what I said. We get some fun moments with Fixer where he's actually like speculating a little bit. Then he also says like, or maybe it's even Captain Maze's.
Yeah, and that's
ladies'
like,
man. He's like,
oh,
I say, so I got the craziest theory. So now shut up and eat. and also we get this moment of Fixer like picking something kind of like extravagant from the menu, or something like fancy from
Yeah.
the menu, and Scorch is like, just give me whatever's the most,
Whatever
like
you have the
the
most
most
of.
food.
Yeah.
Where Fixer's like, I'll have that. It sounds good. It's like just a hint of personality there, which is nice.
Right. And
Which is
Scorch is
nice.
just like, give me the giant pile of noodles.
Yeah, big pile of noodles. I want all of it.
Sounds good, honestly.
Yeah.
Sounded pretty good.
So they're all hanging out in the mess hall, just chilling. Etane's hanging out with Omega, obviously, and then Delta's just hanging out with themselves because they're
Yeah.
pretty insular.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the room explodes because drama.
Yeah. I didn't expect
And
it, for sure.
yeah, it comes out of nowhere, quite literally. The whole mess hall just explodes. Several clones get killed by like flying food trays. It's pretty brutal.
Pretty gruesomely, yeah.
Yeah. And this whole thing sets Scorch off pretty badly.
Completely.
Where he's like was in a safe place and suddenly they were attacked. It's like this was like a no combat zone and that got violated and he took it very personally.
Right. Which is I feel like is indicative of something more since the rest of them are I feel like it's kind of understood like you're in a war zone. Like there is never a place that is entirely safe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm still not entirely sure what set Scorch off like this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't quite put it together.
Yeah, it's not entirely clear, but it's very similar to what happened to Phi, but
right.
No one's stopping Scorch, unfortunately. Which will, better or worse, whatever, as we get to.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, we go back to Coruscant with the Treasury Department.
Right.
Bethany went in, and we find out she's wearing one of the jewels from Ordo's gift as a ring now, and of course Joka notices. Comments on it, asks about it, like, oh, you must have ditched the soldier boy guy. He's like, oh no.
He
absolutely not. In fact, we're married. like, And yeah. And then whenever she comes back from her lunch break, turns out they've like locked down part of the computer system.
Yeah.
Because they detected some kind of weird virus that how did that get there, huh?
Right. And it's hard because it's like she can tell too that it's like, okay, well there's nothing that directly brings this back to me in this moment. But, if the nulls have left something in there and I gave them access to the systems, like
yeah,
it could get really nasty.
It's not looking good. So she's, calls Cal's like, hey, I've got a little bit of a problem. And also a little bit before that, Joka had even commented on like, hey, the war's going to end at some point. And apparently the Senator Skeena, who's the one that kind of got her in trouble, has been pushing for like a full audit of the war spending and stuff. And she's like, crap, that's just going to bring scrutiny and all the stuff I've been looking into, which is probably not a good thing. It's like, bad timing, a lot of stuff. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it is funny, though, that the virus are like, we're not even sure what the virus is doing. It's just kind of sitting there.
It's just there.
It's just there, and we don't know what it is, but that's bad. And it's like, And Vesney's like, yep, I bet I know what that is. Well.
Cover's basically blown. Like, there's very little to do from this
point
on.
Time to get out of here. But she did dig up a little bit of information. It seemed like within a month or two, a lot of this military hardware that's like been bought and on hold is going to be brought into the fold.
Yeah.
So they're narrowing down the time frame for when they're going to have to make their move. And then us, as the omniscience viewer, are like, we're coming up on the moment in time, are we not?
Is it going to be in time?
Yeah, how is this all going to happen? When is all of it going to just explode in our faces?
I like that Karen Travis is even tying this into Revenge of the Sith, how we have the little montage there at the end where suddenly there's all these kind of Imperial-looking assets that, in the movie, you're just making the logical jump that it's like, yeah, sure, this Venator was repainted, there was enough time has passed or whatever, but then it's like, well...
Turns out there was a bunch of new assets brought in.
Right.
Already ready to go.
Exactly. Very interesting.
Yeah, like I said, it dovetails with a lot of things that, all these little threads that didn't make sense or you could rationalize them
Exactly.
easily enough, but it's putting them in concrete. It's like, oh yeah, that was what was happening.
Yes.
So yeah. So Destiny, kind of a little bit of hot water, but I'm sure Cal's gonna be able to pull her out of it because that's what they do.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
we're not to Order 66 quite yet.
No.
But back on Hargab, our final little encounter, Etane's leading Delta and Omega on an assault on the house where the missile came from that blew up the mess. And they raid the place pretty successfully. Nothing really goes wrong with it. But afterwards, 3 of the insurgents got killed, and the other ones were captured. But afterwards, Scorch bodily drags the 3 bodies out into the street, lays them all out like nice and neat in a row, and then just sprays them with blaster fire, and then removes his helmet and spits on the bodies.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay.
I don't. Oh, I don't know. It's a very like. This is very much Karen Travis. I feel like there are so many not subtle allegories to like the or allusions to the war in Iraq at this point.
Yeah.
It's like this is like
For
a
sure.
desert, a deserty planet, and there's insurgency. Fighting against.
Yeah.
But however you want to take that aside, this is a rough moment because it's just one of those things. It was like, even though they attack the clones, but the clones, of course, are interlopers. The Republic, like, there's no winner here. There's never, no matter, like, you're not happy. I personally wasn't happy that they cleared the house, that they captured the insurgents. And granted, it was defensive in this case, like, or, it was like a retaliatory attack. It's just one of those, like, I know these people did this, but Scorch, come on, man. They don't deserve that. And he's, very clearly, like, it's his own rage, and he's trying to...
Kind of similar to, like, the 3rd episode of Bad Batch this season, where it's like, were these guys even really the bad guys?
Exactly. Right.
Even though there are separatists and they're defending their own planet, it's like, they might be the right here. You don't really know.
No.
We know so little about the situation that's going on. It's like the Republic might just be invaders here for all we know.
I mean, and I think they are, because the vibe that I get is kind of a not quite a proxy war, but maybe even something like I don't remember what that group is called. It's MACV SOG in Vietnam. I can't remember what it stands for. But basically the kind of the shadow ops troopers that are like, there's a war happening here between North and South Vietnam, and the United States is not officially involved. And there's so much, like, every operation has to have deniability. Like, we're using Swedish weapons so that no one is provably American.
Right.
And it's like, is this kind of a similar situation where it's a proxy war, where these two these two groups are fighting each other, and the Republic has picked one side they've picked one side to support.
Because they believe that government will be more amenable to
exactly
doing what they want. It's like,
not because they're the good guys, exactly because of what you said.
Yeah. So the whole situation is just not good, no matter how you look at it.
No, it's bad.
And then, desecrating these bodies like this is just not something you ever do, because it's just bad mojo, man. Just don't do that.
It is because I don't consider myself a religious person. But I do, for some reason, it is against my moral compass to do something like that. I wouldn't, I don't know if it's a religious thing or if it's just a respect thing, but for some reason it's like, when someone is dead, you leave them be, or at worst, you leave them there.
Right.
And there's something that is just so vindictive and hateful about what Scorch does, and you're like, yeah, obviously headbutting Sewell is one thing. This is something else.
But again, it's one of those things that he's like, hey, you invaded my private space, you attacked, non-combat people at the time. Yeah. And that's his, in his head, that's what he's doing here. And Etane is like letting it all happen. It's like, hey, we just got to let him vent, because otherwise it will be bad. If we tried to bottle this up, it'd be worse, probably.
Etain
But
is.
she is going to go talk to him after this. But
Yeah, I'm interested to see how she ends up. Her moral compass is still there, but you can tell she's so jaded and just kind of like her exposure to the war has changed her so much from where she was when we first met her, and now she's like gonna just like. Can you imagine Obi-Wan Kenobi letting Scorch do that?
yeah, no,
No, exactly. Like there's
yeah,
no
exactly,
way.
yeah.
Now, granted, this is, Obi-Wan Kenobi. We see him mostly in the Clone Wars. That's a children's TV show. Not going to happen there. But, no, I can't imagine the Obi-Wan, even through the novels, just as the character. He would never allow that. That would never sit. And Etain's just like, hey, man, I don't know what else to do. We just got to let him do it, or it's gonna come out badly some other way.
It'll
This is at
fester
least-
and be worse.
Exactly. At least this is mostly harmless. And maybe scares some of the locals to not.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's rough. It's not a good situation. I remember closing the book and being like, whew.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit with that one for a little while, I think.
Yeah. And after all this plays out, there's another like extremely brief firefight where like there's like a sniper that takes a shot at somebody and they all, return fire.
Yeah, I forgot about this.
But one of the clones is pretty bad at getting the return fire on target quickly. And afterwards they kind of call him out on it. And turns out he's another one of those new clones. Seems like he's not up to spec.
I don't like this. I do not like this at all.
And they notice that he has a different accent. And they ask him about Camino, and he doesn't say anything about like it not being Camino, but they're like, yeah, it's still raining there, right? And he's like, never rained a day, man.
And I'm like, it's because you're from Syntax. You're not from Camino.
Yeah, this is clearly not an actual Camino clone, and he is not on the level, and it's extremely weird. They're really weirded out by this. Like,
I was too.
What?
Well, especially as someone who like didn't really know this was a thing going into this book. I didn't know this was a thing in Legends going into this book. So I'm like, you're not really in uncharted territory. We are reading about Order 66 after all. I know what happens, but I'm curious to see like, okay, well, are these the clones that Palpatine is bringing in who are utterly, this is the new group that are like utterly loyal to him, or but also why would he want substandard clones? It's clear that this, I don't know. Is it just because they're not Kaminoans, you think? The Kaminoan cloning and the flash learning is just so advanced that's why they're so good, and this is maybe less good, and that's why he isn't on target very quickly. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's probably also like a volume thing where they can pump out so many more of these guys.
Right.
So much faster, because a Kaminoan clone takes 10 years. These take 1. So much faster. I mean,
the only thing I'm saying is that I know this series gets cut off before it's time, and I hope I get the answers that I want. I'll leave it at that.
I'm not going to make you any promises.
Cole.
I'm not going to make you any promises you're going to get all your answers, but, we'll see what we get.
We'll see what we get, indeed.
Yeah. And there's one final thing in these chapters where Etain tries to, like, get Darman aside to talk to him about, the obvious thing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Darman's kind of, like, still, like, amped up, hyped up, weirded out, and kind of, like, cuts her off and interrupts her or whatever, and she just kind of feels like the moment isn't right anymore. So she's like, nah, it'll wait. It doesn't have to be now. It's like, oh, opportunity lost.
Cole,
Will this be a regret?
I just got the most terrible sinking feeling in my stomach. Because it's like it all just clicked into place. Obviously, it ends, the last line of the chapter is something like, it couldn't have been important, like on its own line.
Right.
Like it's very clearly pointed. But now it's all kind of falling into place, and I'm incredibly concerned that maybe Darman is not going to find out. Because we're getting to the point in the book. Things are about to break bad for sure.
Like, yeah, we're getting almost halfway there.
Yeah, we will be halfway there, I think, with the next week's reading. So, I don't know, man. I'm gonna read this in bed here in just a minute, but I'm not gonna feel good about it. I'm not gonna like reading this book, I think, this time around.
Yep.
Oh my
We
god.
knew this book brought pain. That is
I will
a fact.
I will say, because that wraps up our chapters, I believe, for this week.
Yes, it does.
The opening of the quote of chapter 7 is we've invented a separatist threat that's bigger than the reality. And it's like, what does that mean? I'm not reading the rest of that quote. It's really long. But what does that mean?
Oh, yeah, and that reminds me of something else I didn't write down earlier, but when they're talking, when all the Gnolls are together talking, one of them has been like surveilling Grievous specifically.
Oh,
on
yeah,
Utah.
and they know where Grievous is, but they haven't told the
And-
Republic.
They haven't told him yet. They're like, they're just sitting on that information. And,
In case we need it.
but also apparently Grievous has been like pestering Dooku. He's like, hey, where's all those droids you're supposed to have?
I knew that
It's like-
came up somewhere. It was here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about it. Yep. Oh, poor Grievous. Doesn't even know.
Dude is the
Doesn't
biggest
even
stooge.
know.
The biggest stooge.
Dooku's well aware.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dooku's also kind of a stooge, but at least
He is, but he knows way more than Grievous.
yeah, he
He
does.
just knows way less than Palpatine.
It's there's levels.
Treachery is the way of the Sith.
I don't know, man. This book sucks. I hate it. I don't want to read it.
It sucks in the best way possible.
Can we switch? Can we change? Can we come back to this one? Like read half of Order 66
No,
and then
I'm
read
sorry.
like something classic and nice, like I don't know.
Oh man,
Roast-
that quote at the next chapter is a huge one too.
It's giant, yeah. That's why I stopped at the first sentence.
Mm.
Anyway, speaking
Yeah.
of next chapter, what are we reading for next week, Cole?
Predictably, we're doing 7 through 9.
It's not enough. Well, until next time, where can people find you floating around the internet these days?
I'm typically at Mando Wraith on all the various social media platforms, and I'm on Skyhoppers whenever work allows me to be.
Yeah. This podcast is on Twitter, Obroa-Skai Pod. Cole's still floating around over there, I believe. That's when I'm assuming, Cole, that you tweet the live stream live or
I did.
link
Yes.
whenever we go live. So if you want to know when we're going live, because it's not always consistent, it's always at 8 p.m. but it's not always the same day. If you want to know when we're going live, you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also watch the video version of this podcast that gets left up. You can watch the live stream whenever that's going on. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can, obviously here in the chat on YouTube while the show's happening, or send us an email, obroskywalkers@gmail.com. We'll read it on the show unless you ask us not to. Yeah, we'll talk about it. But I honestly ready to end this because I want to start reading. I want to start reading. So, library patrons, you know what that means. Please make your final selections. The library closes in 20 minutes. I'm not ready. I feel like Cole, I think this might be the set of chapters. I have a feeling that this is the one. I got a real bad feeling about Darwin and Etain there at the end. Kind of a
You didn't realize it until I kind of pointed it out more.
I think I realized it, but yeah, we talked about it, and you said
It's like,
something,
oh.
and I was like,
Oh no.
it was the way you talked about it. I was like, oh shit, this is it's all about to hit the fan. This is bad. I forgot the stream's up. If you're still here in the stream, thanks for hanging out. I'm taking it down now. I'll see you all next week. Goodbye.